Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so Dave Smith went on Piers Morgan's show and debated Adam Sosnick. Adam Sosnick is PBD's co-host, sidekick. He's got a few different guys that do the show with him now. Patrick Bet-David. Sosnick is the most obnoxious of them, somehow. He's got some pretty obnoxious guys on the panel. But Adam Sosnick's just kind of a douchey guy. He's not very good rhetorically, but he seems to want a piece of the right-wing grifter pie, and he is really going pure Trump. His whole brand right now seems to be completely glazing Trump, absolute loyalty to Trump, and, doesn't really seem to have any thoughts about the situation in Iran or anything at all, other than just trying to pitch Trump's ultimate competence and ability to deliver. So it's like full salesman vibes, which is really what Patrick Bet-David and his whole brand is built off of, valuetainment. So you really see that from Adam Sosnick here, but it is in terrible form. He fails to make a single good point against Dave Smith here, who I guess has been circulating because he said that America and Israel are the biggest terrorist states in the region, or that Israel is the biggest terrorist state in the region and that America is the biggest terrorist state in the world, saying so comparatively, saying that, targeting of civilians deliberately just to show that you can, if you really add it up, point for point, America and Israel have done more of that than anybody. So, that's a fair point. That's a point that I would make. I hesitate to give Dave Smith too much credit, even though I do think he's great on this issue, on the issue of Israel and war in general. But I don't think we agree on a single other thing. But really, Adam Sosnick just kind of self-destructs here, and like I said, came to this debate supposedly to put the nail in the coffin of Dave Smith after Sosnick brings up a separate debate that happened 5 months ago with Coleman Hughes, and just comes without a single good point to make, trying to discredit Dave Smith and ultimately just discredits himself. So here's that.
The IDF is the worst terrorist organization in the region. Let's get real. The United States of America is arguably the worst terrorist organization in the world. If you want to look over the last 25 years, how many innocent civilians we've slaughtered.
It doesn't matter, it turns out, how many times you appear on Joe Rogan's show or how many times you hide behind your title of comedian who holds the Guinness Book of World Records for fewest jokes told. And he's sitting there shouting at his TV screen in his basement, "Debate me, bro!" To which I answer, nah. I don't debate with trolls who claim that America is the biggest terrorist state in the world, because that is idiotic.
Now, for me to say what I made the point, and I've made this point a million times on your show, Piers, I was saying when people come on and say Iran is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, well, just give me an objective definition of what terrorism means, and then let's apply that standard universally. And if you're going to sit here and say, look, America has given billions, tens of billions of dollars to the IDF in the last few years. We've also, by the way, given a lot of weapons and money here. Your first guest on this show there, the head of the Obama deep state, was using Al-Qaeda, bin Ladenite head choppers on the ground in Libya and in Syria. And yes, Adam, I would also consider it when our politicians lie us into wars that slaughter millions of innocent people and in many cases target those innocent people. I consider that terrorism as well. There's the answer, Adam.
You're saying the United States is a terrorist organization. You've already lost the debate. You live in America, tough guy. You have the luxury of sitting in your little studio with your hooded sweater like you're 17 years old. The regime, you mean all American presidents?
I'm 17 years old.
Who's your favorite president in the last 50 years?
Adam, I'm 17 years old.
Who's your favorite president in the last 50 years?
I have a wife and children. Who depends on you, Adam? Your mom?
Okay, I also have
if you want to make it personal,
other, so you want to go personal?
You have a significant other.
We can go as personal as we can go.
No, I'm trying not to.
We can go as personal as you want.
Respond to one thing.
I don't care, Dave.
Adam, some substance.
I don't care.
I know, because you don't know anything.
Dave, you're a radical.
So move on. So stop picking a fight with me, dude. You don't know anything about anything. You're Pat's guy.
I know.
I like you, dude. I like you.
Here's what I will tell you.
I respect Pat.
Because this is where I lost respect for you as a debater. Because I was like, oh, this guy Dave, he actually knows some stuff. He's doing his thing. And then you showed up on Coleman Hughes' podcast. Piers, do you know who Coleman Hughes is?
I do. He's been on the show.
I've been on the show with him.
Perfect. Perfect. That's this guy right here, just in case, if the camera doesn't see.
But what is the point you're making?
I watched this podcast. The point is this. Dave gets out there and he tries to bully people and say that he's so smart. He reads a lot of books. Good for you, Dave. But what happens when you run into somebody who's way smarter and bullies the bully? I remember growing up in this town of Miami, so there was this kid that used to pick on all the kids that we went to school with. And one day, some new kid showed up, and he goes, oh, yeah, let's go, buddy. Let's do this. And the bully goes, oh, what do you mean? What do you want to do? And he goes, no, yeah, you want to fight everybody? You want to take everybody's lunch? Let's go. And the new kid beat the crap out of the bully. And here's what happened with Dave. He's out there just doing his little podcast thing, debating, like you said, Ben Shapiro, 19-year-olds. And then all of a sudden, this whole conversation about Wesley Clark, and I saw him on your podcast about a week ago, Piers, and this memo, here you go, Dave. Remember this memo from Wesley Clark that you used to cite everything?
This is adorable.
That you used to cite, yeah. That is adorable because your whole foundation is based on some memo.
Well, I'm not quite sure what, Adam, I'm not quite sure what is the point you're making.
The point is this, Dave has zero credibility at this point. To pretend that it was an even match, an even debate, he put you in a body bag and you're out here still doubling down on all your positions when he went methodically and surgically.
This is the saddest thing. I've never been in a debate where someone just fell back to someone else's debate. Boom, boom, boom. Name one of the booms. Make the point for yourself. Me and you are supposed to be debating here, brother.
The memo from Wesley Clark.
My point to you, Adam, is simply be it's an unusual debating strategy to spend 10 minutes of this debate talking about another debate that most viewers may not have seen.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
There's other debates that we can bring up. The fact, Dave, when's the last time you were in the Middle East?
When was the last time you were in England?
I spent much time in England. My ex-wife was Welsh.
When was the last time?
She wasn't a sheep shagger.
When was the last time?
The last time I was in Europe, in England, in the Middle East. Where would you like me to go?
No, England.
The last time I was in England was about 8 years ago.
Right. Many people on the conservative right in America seem to be under the illusion that my country has been taken over by radical Muslims. Let me tell you, I have lived here on and off for the last 8 years, unlike you, and respectfully, we have not been taken over by radical Muslims. It just hasn't happened the way it's been sold by people like Tommy Robinson to Americans. And you're all lapping it up.
How would you define it then, Piers? I
think we have a Muslim population which is predominantly peaceful and inclusive and settled well, and we have some radical members of radical Muslims, as we have radical members of other religions.
So he keeps referencing this thing about Coleman Hughes, and by the way, it's great what Piers Morgan says at the end there, fact-checking Sosnick on the talking point about how London has been overrun with Muslims and blah, blah, blah. So I appreciated him on that. I would not have expected him to make that particular argument, but I think that's needed right now, because you do have a lot of these right-wing grifters that are talking about how the evil Muslims of, London and in Europe are just running around raping and killing people, and there needs to be better pushback on that issue. But so Sosnick with Dave Smith is just talking about this debate with Coleman Hughes that Dave Smith did. So I didn't watch this whole thing. It's 3.5 hours long. I missed this when it happened. I also didn't notice that Dave Smith was going viral supposedly for saying that America is a terrorist state. But that's not the first time that specific set of words has gotten somebody in trouble. I remember Lupe Fiasco, the rapper, got in trouble for saying the same thing on Bill O'Reilly's show, which ironically Bill O'Reilly pops up immediately after that segment on Piers Morgan's show. But yeah, the idea that America is a terrorist state has gotten a lot of people in trouble a lot of times, but really, on a purely factual basis, it's 100% fair point to make. But the people like Ben Shapiro and whatnot view that as outside of the Overton window because America couldn't possibly commit a terrorist act because terrorist acts are for that is for the people who are under the boot, whereas our acts of war are legitimate, but their acts of war that they can muster, whatever they're able to do from the position of being under the boot, that is terrorism and is bad and only is justification to crush them more. So as far as this debate with Coleman Hughes, I didn't watch this whole thing. It's 3.5 hours long. This part that Sosnick keeps coming back to is, I guess, a memo that was supposedly the reason that Israel was able to drag us into Iraq, and that was used as like the smoking gun of this is how they convinced America. I don't really care to make that point. Sosnick is doing this weird gimmick where he made this prop. He doesn't make a point about it, does not convey any information about that point at all, and instead does this weird sales pitch. So I think he's fully coming from that world with PBD, where they're just about sales pitches and, you know, trying to tap into the kind of mind of the median voter, the average consumer. I think that's more so the mindset of the valuetainment type of guys. And the truth is, Sosnick right now might be angling to get noticed by Trump, because moments like this are when Trump notices his strongest defenders, the people who are not criticizing him, even in moments where everybody is criticizing him. And so those are the people that Trump tends to pick out of obscurity and move up the ladder. So it's possible that Sosnick is kind of auditioning for something like that here, because I'm not really sure what else he could be doing here. He's not really making the case against what Dave Smith said. He's saying that you already lost the debate because you said that. But really what all these guys are doing is refusing to engage on the concept of military action whatsoever. Like, what is and isn't on the table for America. And so it's interesting that now that we're going to war again, you see the people, there are a decent amount of them that are willing to get on TV and just do this whole routine. Say, like, yes, it's good when we bomb these people, it's good when we kill these people, and it's who cares when we make a mistake, who cares when we bomb a bunch of children and blow them up. Just fully supportive of any and all acts of war. And they tried out this thing of you're not a patriot, you're anti-patriot, you're anti-American. And so what I think is interesting is that that's going to come back in force. We'll see how long this conflict lasts. Does not seem like Trump has control over the negotiations or the timeline of this situation at all. And I can only imagine that if Iran gets that sense that they control the timeline, they're going to make it hurt. So we'll see. There's probably going to be more destruction and escalation to come. But, you know, this whole, you know, you better be a patriot or else type of routine, I think is going to play at least a little bit during the Trump era. There's going to be a certain amount of people out there who are open to that perspective. I don't think it's going to be that many, and it's not going to be as ubiquitous as it was back in the Iraq War. People were less engaged at that time. And so, you know, the idea of just supporting America in general was a little bit more appealing to people then. And so I think only people who are really inclined to support Trump are going to be the ones who are just kind of blithely going along with the whatever narrative, yes, yes, patriot. And I think that people like Dave Smith and some of these podcast bros that are breaking off from this a little, they are seeing that they have no ability to influence what Trump does at all. And so they're frustrated by that because they thought that they had a little bit of pull, they've got sway with the base, but it turns out even if they do have sway with the base, even if the things they are saying do affect the narrative, Trump can just kind of be like, I don't give a fuck, we're doing this, and this is what you bought and paid for. But I think that it's good for some of these guys to break off because it's going to give some of the broader audiences, some of them that might be on the younger side. I don't think that many that young dudes listen to Dave Smith, but probably people in their 20s or whatever. And there being a genuine anti-war sentiment flowing through America is a good thing, and it's a good wave of momentum that can be ridden. It's one of the only consolations for yet again going to a war like this, and for somebody like Trump that is arrogant enough to do something like this, is that it makes him a huge cultural target to say that you are emblematic of everything that we have hated about society for decades. So if this wraps up and then people forget about it, then we'll be on to the next thing. It's looking more and more like that won't be the case, and that this is going to be a drawn out thing. They're probably going to try to get it to a point where people sort of forget about it and we move on to the next thing. But it's possible that that doesn't work. And it's possible that if this keeps escalating or cycling, it's going to end up dominating the headlines in a way that Trump can't control. He likes to be able to control what's dominating the headlines. That's probably why he wanted to send ICE to the airports. You know, he wanted to make the narrative more about domestic politics or whatever, and just try to keep it cycling. But he may not have control over this Iran war situation, and if they unleash the war machine in a way that isn't necessarily responding to the type of back and forth signals that Trump is giving, but rather is just continually going after whatever they feel like going after, especially with these dumbass AI systems that they're hooked up to, then we could just continue to see patterns of escalation. And my point being that that is going to be a long, drawn out cultural conversation. And so these cracks, as much as I don't put a lot of stock in what a guy like Dave Smith says, and I think that, you know, for all of this talk about he's a smart guy and he reads books and blah, 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 at the end of the day, to make the miscalculation that Republicans, especially this Republican, would be better on the issue of war just kind of betrays an illiteracy about politics. So even though Dave Smith is literate enough about it to make similar points that I would make about the Middle East or war in general, and is able to correctly identify that this is a system of domination, but the conservative leaning of his libertarianism, the fact that he is willing or open to the argument of a Republican at all on the issue of war, and was able through all of these sort of culture war psyops to convince himself that right-wing policy and right-wing politicians are going to be better on the issue of war, it just means that that's probably irreconcilable with somebody that is going to be on the wavelength that takes America out of this position. Republicans have done this before. You know, we built a new exciting coalition around Trump, and then we ended up with Mecca Bush Hitler. And so the truth is, like, both of these guys are idiots. Neither of them honestly did that well in this debate. I agree with Dave Smith's position going in more, and Adam Sosnick just came across looking like the ultimate douchebag. And so the truth is that, like, this is the Republican brand, the right-wing brand, struggling a bit. I think the Dave Smith type position is much more popular, and PBD and his show is kind of suffering for this insufferable position that they're taking on war. We'll see how it all shakes out. Like I said, you know, the quickness with which this goes away is going to be a big factor. And you see people like Sosnick talking about this as though it's going to go away quick and it's going to be nice and easily taken care of. And they seem to be way overestimating not just like how much they can bullshit the audience about how much control Trump has, but literally like saying these things now. And then down the line, 6 months from now, if this is still an out of control situation, what are you going to be saying about it at the time? And that's why it's very convenient for them to shift the conversation to, you said America's the biggest terrorist state. You said Israel, you hinted, you suggested Israel might not have the right to exist. And those are the kind of conversations they want to have, especially like on TV programs. That's what they're there to do. So that's why it's interesting to see Sosnick doing this kind of Zionist enforcer routine, trying to shout down somebody who has an inappropriate message on these issues, when really he doesn't have the chops for that. He doesn't seem to come from the type of like boardroom background that really hammers those type of techniques home, that type of media training. Adam Sosnick just doesn't have that. This bit that he did goes over weird, and he just keeps trying to say that Coleman Hughes owned you over and over again. So I don't know, just a weird way to show up to a debate. And, you know, I think Dave Smith is going to carry the narrative on this one. But like I said, something to seriously consider for anybody who falls on his side of the political spectrum is that it is the conservative worldview that has got us here. It's not just that Trump lied about war. The reason people like Dave Smith were willing to vote for Trump in the first place and believed him about war is because they bought into this cultural argument about Democrats and transgender and immigrants and whatever. And so the point is that you're seeing where that ideology gets you. It was bankrupt and completely depraved. The people that sold that to you were lying. They're salesmen. They're car salesmen. enforcement. You should associate them with people like Adam Sosnick and how ridiculous he looks here, because he's trying out to be on their team. And that's ultimately their goal, is to sell you a dream so that they can send you to war. And I'm not saying that Democrats are like, the answer to all of this. In fact, I think that they have prevented us from answering all of these questions. And so Donald Trump, presents all of us an opportunity to move on to the next iteration of American politics that can actually address these things. But the truth is, it's not going to be through libertarian Dave Smith, let's just cut off all taxes or whatever the fuck he thinks. We're going to need a robust government that is collecting taxes, preferably from the rich in large amounts, and redistributing them so that we can fix some of these infrastructural problems. This is basic shit. It's not radical, and we have gone so far to the right that people like Dave Smith are legitimizing themselves as like real political thought leaders when they're going to turn around and tell you that austerity and just doing away with government as a tax collection service is the way to go. And people who survive off of that grift are exactly the ones who have gotten us into this mess in the first place. But even still, all these years later, we don't hear nothing about it. But Trump has implied that the Iranian leaders have tried to kill him multiple times and didn't succeed in it. And it seems like he was hinting at something that had happened.